touching the lives of local people every day.
Welcome back. This is Business Extra. Tonight we're talking mental health at work. It's after the Institute of Directors put out a report on the issue saying that more employers are starting to recognise it as important as physical health, but more support is still needed. My guest tonight in the studio is Tom Oxley from Bamboo Mental Health, who helps businesses work with mental health issues. His thoughts on all this in just a moment, but first let's catch up on the business headlines from the week. First, let's start with Aviva, who are announcing their full year profits. Their operating profits rose 12% to 3.01 billion in 2016. They say they've got 450 billion in assets under management. They say it leaves them in a strong position to grow the business in the future. Yesterday's budget has obviously been hoovering up plenty of the business headlines this week, especially when it comes to the impact on the self-employed and on business rates. The government's looking to increase the amount of tax that self-employed have to pay. They did announce a relief fund, though, to help businesses hit hardest by revaluations of business rates. But there are other changes that could be good news for working parents.
One of the main things was the increase in self-employment taxes, and that will be big news for owner-managed businesses, and particularly in our area where we have a lot of self-employed people. We have lots of farmers, lots of people who run consultancy businesses. That's a big story. There's also going to be more childcare support for 3 to 4 year olds, so working parents will be very pleased to see that. And of course there's going to be investment in schools, but we don't know any of those details yet.
Sugar beet growers across the region say they're hugely disappointed at Tesco's decision to stop stocking homegrown sugar and go for imported products instead. The majority of the British crops are grown and processed here in the east, like here at Cantley next to the River Yare. Tesco have made the decision, and they say to offer the best possible prices to their customers. And thousands of young people have been finding out about their careers of the future at the Norfolk Showground over the last 2 days. Some 3,000 have been at the Skills and Careers Festival from 60 schools and colleges across our county. It gave them a chance to speak directly to employers and find out more about the skills, training and qualifications they need to take and succeed in their chosen careers. OK, let's get back to mental health at work. The influential group, the IOD, the Institute of Directors, have been reporting their thoughts on how it's all dealt with within the workplace. Their new survey shows that some 54% of IOD members have been approached by staff suffering mental ill health, but just 14% have actually got formal mental health policies in place. And fewer than 1 in 5 offer line management training. My guest tonight is Tom Oxley from Bamboo Mental Health, who work with companies to help with the issue. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening.
Now, hearing that the IOD, who are very influential within the business world, are on board with this and are getting involved with the issue of mental health at work, does that please you?
It's good news because it means that the issue has now left the charity realm and is entering in somewhere near the top of the business realm. So it's good news from that point of view. It's nice of the Institute of Directors to join the party, because a lot of people have been talking about this for a long period of time. But there's no doubt that their influence and their muscle in getting through to the people at the top of business will be helpful to the agenda.
Is that key, really, to actually make it, to almost normalise the issue, instead of it being something that's only dealt with by charities and so forth, to actually get in at the top and say you need to understand how important mental health is for a business?
It is in the world of work. So there's one thing for Prince Harry and co to be making the headlines with the charity heads together. It's another thing for your MD or your chief executive to say, I understand the issues around mental health and I will support you in terms of your role in this workforce. It's really important that the leader of a business talks about the issue, because if they do, the senior managers listen. The senior managers listen, then the middle managers listen. And if the middle managers listen, they're the people who can really help the workforce, the people on the kind of coalface who have a lot of the problems.
Because when you go into a company to actually talk to them about mental health issues and their approach to it, what kind of problems do you regularly see?
Well, typically they say that 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem in any 1 year. By that they mean common medical disorders, stress, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, burnouts, that sort of thing. The reality is that we all have mental health all of the time, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's poor. So I speak to a lot of people who sometimes are feeling anxious and stressed, sometimes about work, sometimes about a life event. They just don't know where to turn. So the first thing I do is really try and establish what the processes are for people to get support while they're working for a company, because it's certainly better that you support somebody who's not feeling very well. Again, whether or not it's to do with work or to do with a life event, if you can support them and help them get back to work, their recovery time will be shorter and you'll end up with a loyal employee at the end of it. If you don't help somebody, then that can be pretty dangerous. They might start taking time off. Their performance might dip at work. They might disengage from the team. They might even start self-medicating, and their road to recovery can be a lot more complex as a result.
Can it still be a taboo though? If an employee went to their line manager and said, look, I'm struggling, I'm having a tough time, you understand why that might still be very, very difficult for them to do?
That's it. The IOD survey said that 80% of its members thought that mental health was an important issue at work. That means 1 in 5 don't think mental health is potentially an important issue. You say that 54% of people had spoken to the IOD people surveyed and said that they were suffering from mental ill health. Well, I can tell you that every organisation will have people working for them who suffer from mental ill health. So if only half of them are getting through and actually speaking to the directors, it means there's a barrier. And that means that taboo is sadly still alive and well. There is a stigma about mental health. It's difficult for us to say the words, I am stressed, I have a mental health problem. And
because people might think that's them showing they're weak, or a weak link in their department, for example.
It used to be, for sure. In days gone by, when people couldn't articulate these things and there were no support processes, then certainly to say you had a mental health problem meant one thing: you weren't right. You weren't right for work. You may not be right to do anything. It wasn't so long ago that people would be immediately sent to hospitals or drugged in pretty horrible ways. At least now there's more options, but we're still getting over that. We're still getting through it, which is really why it's important that outfits like the IOD are talking about it to help normalise the conversation.
So, advice-wise to any companies watching this, for example, if they've not got anything in place, why should they put things in place, and what's the best way to go about it? Okay.
Well, first of all, they need to view this as a business decision. It's not a nice to have. It's not an emotional thing to help people with mental health. If your company was run by machines and you knew that 1 in 4 might not be very well during the course of the year, well, you'd have an engineer go around, check those machines, maybe switch them off, run diagnostics, get them back online again. Well, why aren't we doing that with people? Okay, so that's the first thing I'd say that people should do, is look at it in that business, that cost decision.
Almost looking in quite a cold way, just to think, these are assets, I suppose.
That's right. Yeah, all businesses say that the staff are their most important asset. Well, okay, you'll treat them like that then, because if your business depends on your people, and your people need to be performing well, then their mental health is certainly going to be a contributor to that. So when people don't know where to start, okay, so they know that some people have been off unwell, and they know that people are taking some time off, and they hear the anecdotes, but they haven't got anything in place. The best people you can talk to are the people who've been unwell, who are still working for you, because these are the people who'll be able to tell you how the problems came up, how they were helped, how they weren't helped, what they would have liked in order to get them back to work and working well. Because the vast majority of people who do suffer mental ill health, be it for work, be it for a life event, can get themselves back to work and well relatively quickly with the right support. So the best people to ask are the people who've been off unwell.
Well, that seems like a good place to start. Thank you ever so much, Tom. And that is all the time we do have for tonight. Remember, you can drop us a line with your thoughts and your business stories too. You can always find us at Mustard TV, and you get the latest news by subscribing to our New Look YouTube channel. Business Extra will be back same time next week, but for now, my thanks to Tom and to you for watching. Have a very good night.
source, touching the lives of local people every day.